when you look at what he did for her, um,
What if the truth about Remy Ma's alleged infidelity is far more complicated than we ever imagined? Could it be revenge, a setup, or perhaps their so-called perfect love story was never real at all? Charleston White has recently made some shocking claims about Remy Ma and Papa's relationship, and it is not at all what we thought. For many years, fans have looked up to Pappas as the ultimate loyal husband who stood by Remy when she was imprisoned, stayed faithful to her, and supported her no matter what. If what he says is true, the love story we have admired for so long could be nothing more than an illusion. Papa was seen as the epitome of loyalty. He stayed with Remy through her prison sentence, remained faithful to her, and was ready to give her everything when she came home. However, just when it seemed like the rumors about Remy Ma and Papo could not get any crazier, he shared shocking information that might completely change the story. He claims that the reasons behind Remy's alleged cheating go beyond a simple mistake. Papoose, on the other hand, was still the same man she left behind. He expected their relationship to continue exactly where they left off, but Remy was unsure if that was what she truly wanted. After spending 6 years in prison, Remy Ma was not as happy as everyone thought, and she had a completely different outlook on life. This is a different story than we have ever known, according to Charleston White. Charleston White asserts that Remy was coerced into marrying Papoose by her friends, her management, and even Papoose, even though she had no intention of doing so prior to her incarceration. The reason for this is because their love story contributed to the creation of the ideal image. A young female rapper's career might have been destroyed if she had disappeared from the public eye, but Remy managed to stay relevant by marrying Papoose and maintaining their relationship in the spotlight. Papoose ensured that the world did not forget about her while she was incarcerated. But here's the twist. While the world saw fairy tale when Remy eventually recovered her freedom, she discovered that she was entering a position that had already been determined for her rather than a new one, which made her feel confined.
They reportedly, he held her down for 6 years while she was locked up.
The relationship between Remy Ma and Papa has been the subject of more shocking allegations from Charleston White, and this time it is even messier than anyone anticipated. For years, Pappas created what seemed to be the ideal love story, supporting Remy while she was incarcerated, remaining faithful, and keeping her name alive in the music industry. However, when Remy finally got out, Pappas did not want to pick up where they left off. He wanted everything to go exactly as he had planned. He had spent 6 years. According to Charleston, in the initial months following Remy's release, Pappas attempted to control almost every aspect of her career, her choices, and even how she was perceived in public. At first, Remy complied because she felt she owed him that much after everything he had done for her, but eventually, she began to feel frustrated every time she wanted to make changes. Daring step for her career, according to Charleston. When she grumbled, Papoose would intervene and tell her what he believed was right. He would also remind her of all the sacrifices he had made for her and advise her to remain faithful to those who had stood by her. Long before the cheating allegation began, Remy felt imprisoned. When she finally cheated, it wasn't just an error. Rather, it was the culmination of a long-building situation, according to sources, that took place behind closed doors. Canned conversations have shown that Remy had been speaking to another man long before the scandal made headlines. She told him how trapped she felt, how tired she was of being controlled, and how she no longer had the freedom to be herself. However, the real twist is that things were much more complicated than the love story people thought. Charleston White asserts that he saw the late-night texts, heard the silent phone conversations, and when he finally confronted Remy, Pappas knew the truth before anybody else did. Things fell apart. It wasn't only about infidelity. It was about years of trust betraying sacrifices and a failing love story, even if admirers continue to believe in their secret fairy tale romance. Remy has already examined this point, which is where things become more sinister. According to Charleston, Remy's betrayal was motivated by power for years rather than just love. Everything had been held together by Pappas, but after Remy was released from prison, she realized she didn't need him anymore. According to sources, she began to feel as though she was still living in the shadow of her past and that in order to truly break free, she needed to let go of Papoose. However, Charleston maintains that Remy had been preparing to leave long before the affair was made public, and the man she cheated with wasn't just any old guy. He was a member of the music industry whom Papo knew and had been waiting for the right opportunity to make his move. When Pappas finally learned the truth, everything went topsy-turvy. Papo had been known as the calm, loyal husband who epitomized loyalty, but everything changed in an instant when he finally met the man Remy had been seeing. Some claim it happened in a studio, while others claim it was at a private gathering. But it is obvious that when Papo confronted him, everything exploded. He allegedly yelled in a furious tone, and the other man attempted to stay. Before she could react, Papo punched her. The most startling part, according to witnesses, is that security had to intervene before things went out of control. When Papo realized that everything was over, not just the fight, but their love, marriage, and so-called unbreakable bond, Remy was present, but instead of hurrying to his side, she decided to stand with the other man. According to Charleston White, this is only the beginning of the true story. If what he says is accurate, there is an event Remy's betrothal was the subject of a larger scandal that nobody anticipated. Fans and the industry as a whole were shocked for years by the swiftly spreading allegations regarding Remy Ma and Papa's connection. Everyone is now wondering whether Remy had actually been unhappy all along, or if Papoose had been so preoccupied with remaining faithful that he failed to notice their love was waning. Papoose was viewed as the ideal husband, loyal, committed, and always there for her. According to Charleston White, Papoose worked with a sword to keep their love strong, but in the end, he was the only one who was still fighting for it. That's when he realized that the woman he once loved had moved on, with Papo no longer in the picture and Remy beginning a new life. The real questions started to arise. Was it worth it? Did Remy throw it? Added loyal man for something that wouldn't last? Or was Papo just a phase of her life that she had outgrown? The beloved love story didn't end happily ever after. Conclusion after, if heartache, betrayal, and many unresolved questions. In an effort to remain composed in public, those closest to him were aware of the intense grief he was experiencing because of the betrayal, and others in the streets were unable to stop talking. While some viewed Pappas as a guy who sacrificed all for love, others began to question whether his devotion was actually a weakness rather than a strength. How could someone so devoted and strong fail to recognize the warning signs? How could he not realize that the woman he battled so hard for was Charleston Witwatersrand's, that Papa's suffering extended beyond the breakup, and that he felt as though he had lost his identity for years? Papoose had a reputation for being devoted, always supporting his partner, and prioritizing his family. However, his reputation was damaged after he spent more than 10 years proving to the world that devotion and real love still existed, only to be humiliated in the process. Papo avoided the spotlight by getting legal counsel to determine his next course of action. Remy appeared action. Ted, she was not hiding in shame or displaying any remorse. Instead, she seemed to have moved on without any regrets. This lack of care was what hurt fans the most, because they had hoped that she would at least acknowledge the pain she had caused, but instead, she pretended that nothing had happened. Then, to everyone's surprise, Remy appeared on a podcast and, for the first time, discussed the cheating rumors. Her response was nothing, similar to anything. Anticipated rather than hiding anything, she spoke candidly about relationships, explaining that though loyalty is important, happiness should always come first. Her remarks went viral. Did Remy truly choose her happiness over Papo, or was there another factor at play? Those close to Pappas were aware that he had always been a thoughtful person and that his devotion to Remy had never prevented him from seeing the reality of their relationship. Before the relationship breaking point, he began planning to safeguard his future. He wasn't allowing his feelings to rule him. Instead, he was planning ahead. It appeared as though he had already anticipated the end and was making sure he was ready. Rumors started to circulate that Papoose had discreetly taken his name out of some joint business agreements, renegotiating contracts to ensure he wouldn't lose money in the event that the relationship ended, to ensure he was presided. But Papo began working on his own initiatives in addition to his finances. He worked more on his music and personal development, discreetly crafting new songs that would further his career and provide him with an opportunity to share his perspective. Even though Papoose felt broken, he was not defeated. Instead, he utilized the hurt and betrayal as motivation to focus on his profession and personal life as he prepared for the future. Rebuild his life while future. I was out in the spotlight, seemingly moving on with her new life, and Papo was quietly doing the exact opposite. He was focused on taking back his own life and making sure he didn't lose himself in the process. A straightforward question now hung in the air: who really won in this situation? Did Papo leave a relationship that no longer served him and finally realize his own worth? Or did Remy make the biggest mistake of her life by betraying the one person who had always supported her? As Papo developed emotion to her, and professionally, Remy's public image became more difficult to ignore. She pretended that nothing had happened, showed no remorse, and acknowledged the pain she caused. She seemed content with her new life, seemingly moving on from the past. Did Remy give up on loyalty in search of something else? Or did Papo realize that sometimes letting go is the best way to move forward? Remy made peace with the public by sharing her side of the story. Her words did not go unnoticed. The haze sparked strong reactions that left people wondering if she truly understood the impact of her decisions. She explained in her podcast that relationships change over time and that sometimes people grow apart. She also said that while loyalty is important, happiness should come first for some. Remy's discussion on the show immediately sparked a wave of the internet was ablaze with criticism, and many people began to wonder if Remy's pursuit of happiness was truly worth betraying the man who had given her everything. Meanwhile, Papo remained silent and did not respond to the accusations or the public outcry. Backlash fans flooded social media, calling her ungrateful and accusing her of abandoning the man who had supported her through everything. The hashtag justice for Papo spread quickly. A hashtag justice equaling Remy appeared everywhere. Those close to him revealed everywhere. His interview had been the tipping point for him. In that moment, when he finally realized the full weight of what had happened, the woman he loved was no longer the same. She had changed in ways he could not ignore. She had become someone he no longer recognized, someone who was ready to walk away from the situation. He did not attempt to defend himself or post anything on social media, seemingly choosing to deal with his pain in private and out of the public eye. He had always been loyal to her. For years, Papo had fought for their relationship and had supported Remy through her darkest moments without ever doubting his love. However, after witnessing her defend her behavior in public, he realized that their love story was over. For Papo, the betrayal meant losing not only his wife, but also the identity he had worked so hard to establish as the devoted husband and encouraging partner he had fought for, while Remy was out in public seeming for. Moving on with her life and trying to put the past behind her, Papoose was quietly securing his own future. He didn't need to make a public spectacle of his pain or frustration because he knew that real growth happens quietly. Now, Papo had to let go, but it would be a mistake to mistake his silence for weakness because he wasn't just a victim in the situation, helpless and broken. While many people concentrated on broken, after moving, Papo concentrated on his own journey. He had already begun writing new music, putting his heart into it and finding strength in it. This new music wasn't just a means of self-expression. It was also a means of forging a path separate from his relationship with Remy. He also started separating himself from the business endeavors that had previously bound him to her, making sure that his future would not be impacted by their relationship. Be characterized by their common relationship was not only getting over the betrayal, he was creating a life in which he would no longer be known solely as Remy Ma's spouse. He was reclaiming his identity as a man and an artist. Pappas realized that healing was about building a new future rather than remaining mired in the agony of the past, so he used his silence to subtly regain his ability to remind people that he was still strong, capable, and